William Wilberforce. Chapter 1. A Boy Who Belonged to God. William Wilberforce was born on August 24, 1759, in Hull, a busy seaside town in England. Every day, big ships from many countries sailed in and out of the harbor. They brought goods, people, and exciting stories from faraway places. William was small and thin, with a gentle face and bright, sparkling eyes. He had a kind and warm heart. His parents loved God very much. They prayed that William would also grow up to love and follow God. When William was 9 years old, something very sad happened. His father died. The whole family felt great sorrow. Soon after that, his mother became very sick. Because of this, William had to live with his uncle and aunt in London for a while. William's uncle and aunt loved God deeply. They prayed every day and read the Bible together. They told William that God had a special plan for his life. William learned how to pray and began reading the Bible. He also listened to the sermons of a famous pastor named John Wesley. Pastor Wesley taught that we must love Jesus and love our neighbors. William began to wonder, does God want me to do something special someday? After some time, his mother became healthy again and William returned home. His mother worried that William's faith had become too emotional. She wanted him to enjoy other things, so she sent him to many parties and social events. Little by little, William moved away from the strong faith he had learned in London. He was cheerful and friendly, and people liked him easily. But deep inside his heart, a quiet voice whispered, "Something is missing, something very important." Chapter 2. Finding the Way. As William grew up and went to the University of Cambridge, one of the most famous universities in England, there he met many new friends. One of them was a tall and clever young man named William Pitt. The two Williams quickly became close friends. William enjoyed his college life. He laughed, studied, and spent time with his friends. But his life at school felt very different from the strong faith he had felt when he was younger. After graduating, William began to think, what should I do now? William had inherited a lot of money from his family, so he did not need a job right away. But something bothered him. He kept asking himself, what is the purpose of my life? Is there something truly important I should do? One day, his friend Pitt said to him, "William, you should go to Parliament." Pitt said, "People listen when you speak. You should use your voice for something important." With Pitt's encouragement, William ran in the election. To his surprise, he won. He became one of the youngest members of Parliament in England. In 1784, William went on a long trip to Europe. He traveled with his mother, his sister, and a man named Milner. Uncle Milner was kind, wise, and patient. He loved learning and teaching, but most of all, he loved God. During the trip, William asked Uncle Milner many questions about God and faith. At night, when everyone else was asleep, the two talked for a long time. Slowly, William felt something change inside his heart. A warm feeling returned. It was the same warm feeling he had felt as a child when he prayed and read the Bible with his uncle and aunt. William began to wonder, is God calling me again? Is he leading me to a bigger and more important path, one that will change my whole life? Chapter 3. The Terrible Truth. When William returned from his long trip, he felt that his heart had changed. Something new had grown inside him. He started reading the Bible every morning again. He prayed more often, and his heart felt alive, joyful, and open. But a hard question began to trouble him. Should I keep working in politics? The political world seemed full of selfishness, pride, and arguing. For several weeks, he felt torn between, should I follow God? And should I stay in Parliament? Finally, he went to his closest friend, William Pitt, who had become the Prime Minister of England. They sat in Pitt's house as the fire crackled quietly. "Pitt," William said softly, "I feel that God has changed my heart. I want to follow him with all my heart. But I don't know if I should stay in Parliament." Pitt looked serious, then shook his head. "William, just because you have faith does not mean you should leave. You should stay. England needs you. Parliament needs your voice. And maybe," Pitt added with a small smile, "God has a reason for placing you here." Those words stayed deep in William's heart. Maybe God really does have work for me to do in Parliament. Soon after, he met a man named Thomas Clarkson. Clarkson had spent many years uncovering the terrible truth about the slave trade, a cruel business where African men, women, and children were captured, taken on ships, and forced into slavery. Clarkson opened a heavy wooden box and showed William the objects inside: chains, handcuffs, iron collars, and pictures of the horrible suffering on slave ships. William felt sick to his stomach. "It's too horrible. How can this keep happening?" he whispered. Clarkson looked at him sadly. "Because there are hardly any people brave enough to fight it. But you might have that courage." That night, William prayed for a long time. Then it felt as if God whispered in his heart, "Stand up for those who are suffering. Speak for those who have no voice." William knew what he had to do. God was calling him to a very important mission, a mission to set people free. Chapter 4: God's Call to Fight Darkness. William's decision was now clear. He believed God had given him a holy and special job to fight against the slave trade. But he also knew this fight would be very hard. The slave trade made many rich and powerful people even richer, and they would not give it up easily. Even so, William felt strong courage in his heart. This courage did not come from himself. It came from God. Every morning he prayed, "Lord, please guide my steps. Give me wisdom. Help me fight for your children." With Clarkson's help, William learned more about the horrors of slavery. He discovered how African people were taken from their homes, forced onto crowded ships, and treated with terrible cruelty. Each story broke his heart. One evening, Clarkson visited William again. He spread out beautiful African cloth, carvings, and handmade tools. "These show their art and culture," Clarkson explained. "People must understand that Africans are precious human beings made by God, just like us." William's eyes shone. "We must show the world the truth." In May 1789, William gave his first important speech in Parliament against the slave trade. Many members of Parliament looked annoyed. Some rolled their eyes, while others whispered that he was foolish. But William stood tall and spoke bravely. "I am not here to blame anyone," he said. "I simply want us to see these people as God's precious children, because that is what they are." He described the chains, hunger, sickness, and terrible conditions on slave ships. Some members of Parliament looked uncomfortable. Others looked angry. But William did not waver. He felt God was with him. William grew tired sometimes and felt sad, but he never gave up. "God called me to do this," he reminded himself, "so I will obey him." This was only the beginning. The real fight had just begun. Chapter 5: A Never Giving Up Fight. The years after William spoke against the slave trade in Parliament were very hard. Every week, many people stood against him. Some lawmakers laughed at him. Others shouted and tried to stop him from speaking. But William did not give up. He always carried a small Bible in his pocket. When he felt tired or sad, he read a verse to himself. "Speak for those who cannot speak." Proverbs 31:8. Little by little, people began to listen. More and more ordinary people wrote letters to Parliament. They hoped for a better and fairer world. Pastors prayed in churches and encouraged people to help. Students, women, and men all joined together and signed their names. Even some merchants who once made money from the slave trade began to see that it was wrong and chose to help stop it. William did not work alone. He worked with a group of Christian friends called the Clapham Community. They prayed together, made plans together, and encouraged one another. One evening, a friend named Clarkson came to William with a big smile. "We have thousands of signatures," he said. "People now see what is wrong. God is changing their hearts." William smiled quietly. For almost 20 years, William kept going. Some days, he cried in his study when he heard stories about people suffering as slaves. But every morning he prayed, found new strength, and continued his work with faith. Finally, in 1807, something wonderful happened. Parliament passed a new law called the Slave Trade Abolition Act. This law stopped Britain from buying and selling slaves across the ocean. William quietly knelt down and prayed, "Lord, thank you so much. I could not have done this without you." But William knew the work was not finished. Slavery still existed in places ruled by Britain. So he prayed again, "Lord, please show me what I must do next so that everyone in the world can be free and treated fairly." Chapter 5. The Real Fight for Total Freedom. The slave trade ended in 1807, but William knew the fight was not over. Slavery still existed in places ruled by Britain. Many men, women, and children were still forced to work without freedom in very hard conditions. William prayed every day, "Lord, your work is not finished yet. Please show me how to give true freedom to people who are still in chains." William worked with many friends who loved God. One of them was a faithful man named Thomas Powell Buxton. He shared the same dream as William. Together, they spoke in Parliament, wrote letters, shared articles, and asked people to pray for those who were enslaved. As William grew older, his body became weak. Even walking was painful, and his cough often made it hard to speak. But he never stopped. From his home, he wrote letters, made plans, and helped Buxton and others continue the work. One afternoon, Buxton said, "Sir, one believe our country is ready. The people want slavery to end." William smiled gently and said, "Then we must move forward with courage. This is the work God has given us, and we must obey Him." In Parliament, they spoke clearly. All people are precious and created by God. Everyone has the right to be free. William kept praying and reading the Bible to find strength. One verse often helped him. "Learn to do good. Seek what is right. Help those who are suffering." Isaiah 1:17. At last, in 1833, Parliament passed the Slavery Abolition Act. This law gave freedom to enslaved people in all lands ruled by Britain. William was too weak to go to Parliament, but he heard the news at home. Tears of joy filled his eyes. "Thank you, Lord. I am at peace now." Just 3 days later, on July 29, 1833, William Wilberforce passed away peacefully, surrounded by family and friends. He lived a life full of prayer, courage, and faithful obedience to God. Chapter 7. A Shining Life. William Wilberforce's life was filled with faith, courage, and love. He faced many hard challenges, but he always tried to follow God's way. Prayer and the Bible guided his steps. He never cared about becoming rich or famous. Instead, he worked to help the poor and those who suffered. He believed helping others, children, the hurting, and those treated unfairly was pleasing to God. Even after the slave trade law passed, he continued praying for wisdom and strength. William Wilberforce's story shows that with obedience, prayer, and courage, one person can change not only a country, but the whole world. Chapter 8. The Amazing Gift of Faith. William Wilberforce's story teaches us something very important. One person who follows God can change the world. William, a boy from the small town of Hull, grew up to live a life full of faith and bravery. He played a key part in ending the slave trade. Even during hard times, he believed God wanted a fair and free world for everyone. He was a great example of loving and helping others, especially those who were poor or mistreated. William's dream continued through his friends and the many people who carried on God's message. Fight against what is wrong. William prayed and worked for many decades, following God's call, until he peacefully passed away. Today, his story is remembered around the world. It teaches us that if you choose what is right, even when it's hard, ask God for wisdom, treat everyone as God's precious children, and never give up. God can do amazing things through you. William's life is a wonderful reminder that God can use even a small, ordinary person to do incredible things. The precious gift he left behind still shines with faith, justice, and love.